In this video, you'll learn how to leverage the Google Gemini CLI to simplify and speed up your API testing workflow. We'll be using RESTful Booker, a test-friendly API created by Mark Winteringham for learning and practicing API testing. It lets you try out create, read, update, and delete operations, and also includes authentication features. It also has some built-in bugs for you to find and test. The API starts with 10 sample records and resets every 10 minutes, so you always get a fresh setup to work with. Let's explore how effectively Gemini can interact with it. We'll go through a 3-step process, and the first step is getting to know the API. Here's our first prompt. Explore the API documentation for the Get Booking and Create Booking endpoints from the RESTful Booker API site. Summarize the following for each. Endpoint purpose and supported HTTP methods. Required and optional request parameters or payload. Expected response structure. Any authentication requirements. As soon as I press Enter, Gemini CLI starts working on the request and asks for permission to open the API documentation website. Once we give permission, it starts outlining the strategy. To gather more information, it needs to run another search, so it asks for permission again. As soon as we allow it, it goes ahead with the search. And this time, it brings back the information we need, details about the Get Booking and Create Booking endpoints. Our next step is to identify test scenarios. Here's my next prompt. List at least 6 to 8 possible test cases to validate the Get Booking and Create Booking endpoints. Include both positive scenarios, valid input, negative or edge cases, for example, missing fields, invalid data, and incorrect ID. Gemini CLI quickly starts planning and creates a list of positive and negative test cases for the Get Booking and Create Booking endpoints. In the next step, we'll ask it to generate code for the test cases we identified. Here's our prompt. Write pytest-compatible API tests using Python and the requests library to cover the test cases listed in the previous step. Ensure the tests include assertions on status codes and key response fields, clear test function names and structure, and 1 test per scenario. Once we hit Enter, Gemini CLI gets to work on designing the test cases. It requests our approval before creating the file. After getting permission, it creates the file and then asks again for permission to write the generated test cases into it. Next, it asks for permission to install pytest and requests and then run the tests. First, let's take a look at the test file created by Gemini CLI. The tests are well organized and include the necessary assertions to check the results. Now, we allow CLI to install the dependencies. Next, it asks for permission to run the tests. Let's proceed with running the tests. Looks like one of the test cases didn't pass. Gemini is now diagnosing the test failure. Gemini is now sharing the diagnosis results. The test Create Booking Invalid Total Price test asserted that the API would return a 500 error for an invalid total price, but it returned a 200 OK instead. This indicates the API doesn't perform the expected validation. We've actually encountered a known bug in the API. This means Gemini wrote effective test cases that caught an existing issue. It asks if we want to fix the test based on the API's return value, but since this is a real defect, we won't apply the suggested changes. And that's it. Gemini CLI has successfully generated API test cases for us. You can also run Gemini CLI in low mode, which automatically approves all actions without asking for permission at each step. I prefer staying in control by reviewing and approving each step before it runs. Now it's your turn to try out Gemini CLI. Be sure to share your experience with us in the comments section below. Happy testing!